Welcome everyone. I am Deepak, Assistant Professor, Mahatma Gandhi Central University, Bihar. Today, my topic is Bijay Dubey. He is a Bengali, forgotten, rejected, neglected, unknown, and excluded poet. He is one of the most amazing talent, but unluckily, no one know him. In fact, academic world is very cruel. From centuries, we have seen several poets came and go. Out of them, quite a few become popular and remain with us in our coursework. Rest are forgotten. These forgotten are never revived. If we look at our reading of literature, we will find Geoffrey Chaucer, her Edmund Spenser, William Shakespeare, John Milton, Robert Browning, John Keats, William Wordsworth, and many other poets, including T.S. Eliot. They always stayed with us. And perhaps no, everyone know their name, but there are several poets in line which are forgotten. For example, T.S. Eliot. If we look at T.S. Eliot copy the famous poem The Wasteland from another poem of the year 1911. Everyone know T.S. Eliot and The Wasteland, but who was that poet? No one aware about it. So this is the case of history. Some history is a kind of thing where you come for some time, stay and left, but your work remains. But there are several others who are very popular but never counted. For example, D.F. Karka, Dosa Bhai Framji Karka, an Indian novelist and a war correspondent from Mumbai, from Maharashtra, and he was one of the amazing names, but no one know him today, and he is totally forgotten. There is hardly any article except mine because my PhD thesis one was on him. Apart from that, these writers, poets, and others are forgotten. Keeping this thing in our mind, I am bringing this topic for you, and the theme of this topic is excluding poet Bijay Dubey. And now, after this background, let's start going with this kind of our PPT presentation, which we are having with us. And Bijay Dubey itself is a very well-known name in academia, but he is not revived by critics, and that is why no one know him. And if we look at Bijay Dubey, the title itself says an excluded Indian in English poet, and he is from Bengal right now, and in his academic, he is writing poems from last 40 years, and one of the amazing talent that India have, but we just forgot him, and today he is wiped out of literary history. This is the very picture of Bijay Dubey. He is more gentle, cool, relaxed, mellow fellow kind of person. If you talk to him, you will fall in love with him. But the bad thing is that no one know him. He is from Bengal and writing poetry from a long time, but for whom? He is getting readers who come praise him and never revived him. There is hardly any article, long academic article on him, but although some of his friend has written something on him, some books, and these books are rarely read by scholars because as we know, either it is William Shakespeare, John Milton, Alexander Pope, or whatever name you have, their reputation is made by critics. Their research scholar, academic professor, lecturer, and the coursework adopted in the universities, college, schools, and so on in, through coursework or course book. If these writers are not given due text, then they will be forgotten. And several names we have, and Bijay Dubey is one of them. If we look at biographical details of Bijay Dubey, Currently, he is principal of Chandrakona Vidyasagar Mahavidhalaya, CK Town, Medinapur, West Bengal. He is writing poetry from last 40 years, but no one knows him in the academic world. Dubey has written more than 5,000, including small and long poems, which bears the theme of religion, theology, love, politics, style, and even autobiographical. He has written more than 30 collections of his poems. And these collections frequently revived by different bigger names of English literature, but there is nothing published on him. Nothing doesn't mean that there is not even a single article. Yes, there is, but not in the extensive way. These are some collections of him, and all begins with the Ferryman, the collected poems, love poems, my father, my selected poem, my Bengali wife, poetry as a knowledge and wisdom, Indian style, irony and humor in English, the cartoonist Boatman's India and other poems, Mukhyamantri and his cabinet, Indian style, Chandramukhi, Pale Pages, Divine Path and other verses, a collage of verses, light and serious twice, and divine path and other verses, Pindadan, rhythm of speech, the rhythm of life, wit and humor, a pamphlet of poetry, third in number, statement of poetry, why they need biographies, a poetical text and being words. This is a collection of 24 books, or you can say collection of poetry, but he has written more than 30. There are several between 1989 to 2001 that the copy of those are destroyed. All because he is not collecting things, because Dubey belong to that generation that can write by pen and pencil. He is immune to the modern knowledge of computer and so on, and hence it is very hard for him to collect the materials in itself. And whatever I have, whatever he left is with me. I have nearly all these collections with me, and working on a project for a book on him. And I think I have spent some 7 months on these works, and hopefully sometime sooner rather than later I will come with a book on him. And let's move forward apart from these collections of poems. And if we look at our poet Bijay Kant Dubey, he is not without praise. If we look at the Ferryman collection 1981, 88, sorry, it is revived by several writers, several poets, and if we look at his own career, then Jan Mahapatra, K.K.N. Darwala, Musical, and the famous critic M.K. Nayak, Sahitya Academy Award winner K. Sachidanandan, and Kushwant Singh are those people who praise Bijay Kant Dubey. They read his poetry, gave comment, reviewed, and liked them, and advised him to publish. And this way, you can say that Bijay Kant Dubey is not an ordinary name. He has a reputation of writing poetry, and everyone like his work. But the thing is that good people, good scholar, intellectual name, everyone know him, but ordinary people, academic world, student, teacher, professor, university, college, schools are alien to him. Where is the mistake? This mistake has several roots, and we will cover them one after another. But let's move a bit further. And uh, if we look at this work, this poet, the very famous book, The Ferryman, that published in the year 1988, and this impressive poet has started writing poetry some 40 years ago, and Adil Jusawala was the first person, the famous poet Adil Jusawala, who gave him early recognition by publishing few of his poems from The Ferryman, The Song of Soul in 1988 with the critical comment in Dabonet. Oh, sorry, the mistake is there. The poet make his presence felt in the poetic world as it is again revived by the newspaper, The Hindu and Indian Pen. So these are the things that we have. And if we look at history, then Bengal remained cruel to its poet. The more emphasis of Bengal remain in establishing Rabindranath Tagore as their face. All poet apart from him are given less preference, and we can say or compare the same with Jibananda Das, another Bengali poet. He was contemporary to Rabindranath Tagore, but he was not given the due respect he deserved, and all the limelight is stolen by Rabindranath Tagore. In that sense, what happened? Rabindranath Tagore became a figure which hide all the talent of Bengal at that time. It was not perhaps mistake of Rabindranath Tagore. It was the time that need a writer to be established, and Rabindranath Tagore fit in that category. But later on, critics failed to revive their authors, their poets, their novelists, and dramatists, and so on. And that happens that a bunch of talent lost its sign, and Jivananda Das was one of them. And although it is relief that in 21st century, critics are reviving Jivananda Das. Even one of my students is doing PhD, and his title is Jibananda Das, an excluded Bengal novelist, because Jibananda Das also wrote some 13 novel and 108 stories, and my student is working on that. And the problem with Jibananda Das non-poetic work is that he never get reviewers, and perhaps my student could be one among them, and let's see what he gives. But if we compare Jibananda Das with Bijay Dubey, then whatever be the case with Jibananda Das is even worse in case of Dubey. At least Jibananda Das published his work, he reviews, even though negative, but the case of Dubey is totally different, and he is not revived. He is just recognized by several bigger names, but now he is out of canon. At least most of Bengali people know Jibananda Das, but what about Bijay Dubey? And if we look at our history, it is not Bengal that is cruel to its talent. Several other regional poets are there who are not respected by the respective people, critics, scholar of the time. Dinanath Nadim, who is a Kashmiri poet, received Sahitya Academy Award in 1987. He was unpublished throughout his life. Later on, his poems are collected and he was given Sahitya Academy Award. So all his poems were unpublished till his death, uh, uh, or around the deathbed. If we look at Dayachand Maina, who born in this of Haryana, many of his poems were unpublished. The first publication of his come in the year 2011 by Dr. Rajendra Bardgusa. If we look at Bhikhari Thakur, although work of him are available but only in regional language, he is rarely recognized out of Bihar. Similarly, Amrita Pritam's case is no different than that, and Jivananda Das is having in the list. And why such thing happens? So because as we know, world is having so many poets and talent, they come and go. Only few remains in the list, and rest are forgotten. And whatever the reputation they have is taken by some other. And in case of India, we have modern poet Adil Jusawala, Nizam Musical, Jayant Mahapatra, K.K.N. Daruwala, Dilip Chitre, Khuswant Singh, Baldev Mirza, I.K. Sharma, D.K. Kabadi, Kamla Das, and list can go infinite. These poets killed the reputation of poet like Jibananda Das, Bijay Dubey, and so on. But how these poets, Adil Jusawala, Nizam Musical, Jayant Mahapatra, K.K.N. Daruwala became popular? We will discuss it on the later slide, perhaps on the second last slide, but not here because the momentum will be lost. If we look at the fight between Tagore, Jibananda Das, and Bijay Dubey, then these are the three important name that from Bengal I am having, because Tagore Nobel Prize, Jibananda Das writing at a most critical time. Dubey is writing from last 40 years and has written more than 5,000 poems, still unknown. And apart from Tagore, Tagore is a kind of umbrella term, you could say, that had taken every writer in it. And this is how, to establish reputation of one poet, Bengal killed all other talent. And it will take a long time for critics to review them, revive them, and give them in the modern scenario. Several names are here, and we cannot count all because the lecture would be very long in that sense. So instead of that, let's move further. And some of the mistake that we have in case of that Bijay Kant Dubey is that he never published his work in any uh, book form, in the conventional book form, never bind like any other poet or writer or novelist. He never. In fact, he write by pen and then give it to some typewriter or interview or the person who can do it on that. And he take print out and then make copy of them and distribute them in a booklet form to the professors of college, to his friends and intellectual, and post them to the storyteller, poet, novelist, and critic. They reviewed them and sent them the work. And the good thing about Dubey is that he kept all the record of those letters, the essays, reviews, and everything. Him. But good thing about Dubey is that his works can be located in National Library, Calcutta, Sikkim Library, and many other universities' library of highest reputation. So Dubey is everywhere. What is missing? He is not been able to get reviewers. In case of these reviewers, Dubey is lost. He is not even lost, he is just wiped out of history. If we look at the famous poem collection, The Ferryman Song of Soul, that is 1988, it is the first and most famous unpublished collection of his poetry. It educates readers on the harsh realities of life, birth, death, rebirth, while describing a modern man's anger against life, existence, and miseries. This collection of 97 poems is highly modeled after Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali and begin with Thou Art My Father. The number of these 97 poems is similar like Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali in Roman. It is not 1, 2, 3, but in Roman structure. The subtitle Song of Soul refers to the relation of Visvatma, translation that is soul of the universe, and human beings. P. Rajappan writes, the concept of human soul waiting patiently for the union with divine, her lover, is a recurring theme or image in Tagore's Gitanjali, and same is also applicable on Bijay Kant Dubey, The Ferryman, the Song of Soul. Good thing about Bijay Kant Dubey is that in the earlier version, The Ferryman, he is emerging as a religious poet. He did not restrict his area or theme, rather move beyond. He became a feminist poet, and the famous collection, which is again unpublished, Do They Need Biography? A Statement of Poetry, is one of the most modern collection of 17 poems, deals with the life, sacrifice, and talent of women in the life of some legends. This collection had a feminist tone and questioned life of famous male legends from literature and politics with the reference to their wives and female friends. The poet was so amazing that he interrogated Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Subhash Chandra Bose from politics and how they treated their wife. And wife, the case of Jinnah and Nehru's wife is explained with the amazing pathos and pity. Similarly, in case of literature, Madhusudan Dutt, Mulk Raj Anand, D.S. Lawrence, Salman Rushdie, Adil Jusawala, and Maharshi Dyanand, Maharshi Arbindo's life and their relation with their wife is counted. Reading them, these poems, you can find that the poet of Ferryman is different from the title, Do They Need Biographies? So that is a kind of work that make you feel the different variation of Bijay Kant Dubey. But themes doesn't end here. It has long way to go, and if he was a religious poet, he was a feminist poet, he is also a really reformative poet. His collection, The Rock Temples and Dark Daughter, can be seen as reformative poems, a theme further stretched in Chandrakona and Buddha poems. Several figures in these poems stand for heroes and some for Joginis and few are for Devdasis. The poet accepts them as a symbol of past, which are mysticized in epical poems. The figure and figurines are like those stars that wrinkled at night and saw the presence of dark daughter there all time. In rock cut temples, the poet defines the beauty of various rock temples of India undoubtedly. Poet's mode, content, subject are fully religious, mystic, sublime, but he doesn't forget to mention the social taboo attached to it. Either about this Devdasi, Joginis, and Hungary poverty. These are mentioned, and poets say that these must be eradicated to establish equality among people. Although the work are itself religious, but they are quite reformative. He wrote several poems about pain and suffering of poor, and his poetry is inseparable from man and identity of Bengali culture and often bent towards mystical themes. His pen defines various qualities of Rama, Krishna, Shiva, Buddha, and other mystical figures through magnificent song. The uniqueness of Dubey's poem is not that he wrote on Indian legend, but also the one who democratized mysticism. He wrote poem on Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, mysticism, and mystical themes. And this is where you can find, if you want to read the real Bengal, then perfect time and the perfect moment is to read Bijay Kant Dubey. His poetry is for everyone, for rich, for poor, for middle class, educated, uneducated. He is seeing everything from new angle, new perspective that hardly people know. He is speaking the language of common people, and yet common people are unaware about him. Now coming to historical theme, apart from our work, he is also a historical poet, and he counted history in several poems like Chandrakona, Dark Daughter, and Ferryman, and so on. So everywhere history is scattered in several of his poems, and there are several figures, figurines, sculpture, temples, and what not. Everything is counted, and that is the line from the poem Chandrakona, and it will define the historical Chandrakona temple. And I am just counting the line. Now line dilapidated, abandoned, and fallen into the mound of earth of the debris and rubble. The temples of Chandrakona, historical and old, icy sculptures on the outer wall and the pillars. The terracotta plateau, the erotic love, warfare, worldliness, and devotion, decorating as motif and architecture so beautiful, but uncared for. Oh, temples dilapidated, falling, and in the ruins, neglected and ignored, all those historical temples of Chandrakona. And here we are seeing even his terracotta temple poems are amazing. It is opening a panorama of history that we forget, and perhaps if you want to check the history of temples of Bengal, do visit poems of Bijay Kant Dubey. But now here in this poem, poet is talking about Chandrakona temple, which is neglected and ignored. But if we look at overall, poet Bijay Kant Dubey is itself neglected and ignored. He is excluded. The problem is with this academic world. They run so much after Rabindranath Tagore that other poets failed to get what they deserve. And Bijay Kant Dubey is one of them. Earlier, we defined several writers and how they become popular. And if we go back to these names, then we can find this Adil Jusawala, Nizam Izzikal, Jayant Mahapatra, K.K. Daruwala, Dilip Chitre, just not counting Kushwant Singh, Baldev Mirza, I.K. Sarma, D.K. Kabadi, Kamla Das, and others. How they become popular, and several of their poetry is published in writers' works. So, what is this writer's workshop? And for it, I am having two slides. In the first slide, we are having its background. Writer's workshop, a brainchild of Purushottam Lal. Purushottam Lal, founded in 1958. It was a literary platform where many Indian poets published. Shiv Kumar's Articulate Silence, Jayant Mahapatra, Swamvara, and other poems. Narendra Pal Singh's two early collections, Zero Hour and Crossroad, are published by it. With this national poetic platform, those poets get recognition among intelligentsia. However, Dubey looks at it oppositely in an unpublished poem. Indian English poets are not poets. This is a long poem by Bijay Kant Dubey. I am not going to record all this poem, but a few lines that he said about writer's workshop. He thinks Indian English poets are not poets born, they are made. And if we look at this statement, then writer's workshop is that place where poets are made. And these poets are celebrated, reviewed, criticized, and promoted by writers' workshop, and many of them are now masterpiece. And if we look at these poets, several of these poets are in our coursework, like Indian poetry, Indian English poetry. When you are reading, they are mostly from writers' workshop, not all, but maximum are from there. And Dubey charges that whoever is praised by workshop become a major poet, whether or not they possesses the quality. So several times Dubey is more critical of this writer's workshop. In fact, he also approached to publish his poems there, but luckily he was rejected, and only poet can tell in which way he was rejected. Although he told me this tale, and I will explain this some other lecture, but not right now. This is second segment, and if you look at many poets like Kamla Das, Aga Sahid Ali, Asif Kurumboy, Adil Jusawala, Arun Kolatkar, K.K. Daruwala, Jayant Mahapatra, Nizam Izzikal, R. Parthisarthi are published by us. They are recognized as modern English poets. However, it doesn't mean that all poets become sensation and earn a name and fame who are published by this writer. One of such unlucky name is R. Rabindranath Menon, a poet from Bombay. Maximum of his works are published by this, and you can count Dasavtara and other poems, 77, Stars in the Wind, Shadows in the Sun, Grass in the Garden, Heart on the Shoestring, and Pebbles on the Shore. So these collections are published by writers also. But despite it, he failed to get recognition. So these are the things that we have, and if we look at why these poets like R. Menon, Bijay Kant Dubey failed to get recognition, and its answer is in Jaipur Literary Festival, and answer is given by famous person A.K. Mehrotra, Arvind Krishna Mehrotra. He blamed that Indian critics have not learned how to make connections from one book to book, how to revisit past, and how to create a larger conversation about literature. Due to this lack of larger conversation of literature, the poets like poets like R. Rabindranath Menon, Bijay Kant Dubey are ignored. No one knows. Even Bengali people, poets, critics, scholars fail to make connection from with any of book of Bijay Kant Dubey. Whom to blame? And surely, if we follow A.K. Mahrotra, then critics are responsible for it. And without them, it is not possible that a writer can do, because the writer's main task is to write poetry. Now it is critics' duty to present it among the generation, scholar, readership, so that they can understand the new poet. But these critics fail to do so, and hence rejection, exclusion from history, canon making. No one knows Bijay Kant Dubey today. Although he has written more than 5,000 poems and more than 30 collection of poetry. Such a large wealth, even Wordsworth hasn't written so many poems. But bad luck to Bijay Kant Dubey. And overall, we can say, due to the failure of critics, readers are not aware whether Nadim, Maina, Thakur, Pritam, and others who wrote poetry on love, religion, mystic, tradition, culture, and anything else. Although many of these poets were unpublished, but now they are reviewed. At least Dayachan Maina is reviewed in Haryana, Nadim in Kashmir, Pritam in Punjab, and other. But Bijay Kant Dubey is not reviewed or revived in Bengal. It is good luck that these poets are having their base in their regional areas, but Bijay Kant Dubey failed to get the same recognition. And such rejection locate him in the paradigm of most neglected, rejected, and excluded poet. When Mahrotra words are applied to writers' work, so then not mere publishing guarantees of success. The success lays in criticism and research. R. Menon failed to attract scholars who could write on his poem. Same was the case of Bijay Kant Dubey. Dubey is doubly unlucky. He failed to get even a publication. Getting a criticism is a part of it. Overall, from the career of Bijay Kant Dubey, we come to know that Bengal is having double standard towards its poet. Poets are in domain, they are respected, reviewed, and given beautiful words by the scholars, but they are not promoted. There is a kind of politics behind it, and politics of promotion or advertisement. So much of emphasis is laid on the famous poet. Bengal do not want to make a new poet. If the new poet is in making, the old reputation of older one will be lost. But it is not. In reality, if a state or a nation is giving more poet, then it is their intellectual wealth. And with this wealth, they can get name and fame in other areas. To present these areas, these writers, their work to the larger audience will make the value of other poets too. For example, several times poetry of Rabindranath Tagore and Jibananda Das is compared. If we get Bijay Kant Dubey in the line, his poetry can also be compared with those two. It is relief that we are having a PhD on Jibananda Das, but unlucky we cannot have this poet. I would appreciate if someone come here and write a PhD on this. I am ready to help a person or so on. So this is what I have. It is just an anger of a scholar towards the critics who fail to do so. And it is perhaps my first attempt to present him, although I also have written an article on Bijay Kant Dubey, which is pending or under review in Sage publication. Let's see whether they accept it or not, but doesn't matter, either accepted or rejected. Bijay Kant Dubey is Bijay Kant Dubey. He is one of the most amazing name, and research on his poetic career could explore new dimension to Bengali literature, English literature, and also to the life of the scholar and person who is going to research on. And with this, I will say thank you. And this is what I have, and our nation's property is from this poet. If we look at England, they established several of their poets: Wordsworth, Milton, Alexander Pope, Alfred Tennyson, Robert Browning, Matthew Arnold, T.S. Eliot, and several others. But it does not mean that promoting these poets is reducing the value of other poets. By the promotion of Matthew Arnold, the value of John Milton is same. The value of William Shakespeare is same. Value of Robert Browning is same. Value of Alfred Tennyson is same. Value of John Keats, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Shelley is same. If we promote our writer on a larger plane, it is no way disrespect of any other poet. If we promote this poet, doesn't mean we are going to disrespect other poets. It is responsibility of a state itself to respect their talent. And Bijay Kant Dubey is Bengal's property. He is writing poems for Bengal culture, Bengal themes, Bengal history, Bengal tradition, Bengal's temple, and giving it to the larger audience. And hence, time has come that Bengal, its scholar, researcher, understand their responsibility and give us what Bijay Kant Dubey deserves: respect, research, recognition, and everything you can. With this, I will say thank you, take care, goodbye.